Thank you very much for the privilege of being able to speak with such eminent speakers whose courage I have admired for a long time, Professor Punyani and Professor Mustafa, and of course our TV presenter, Faye D'Souza. We are all very grateful for the type of interventions that they have made in Indian society. I am a student of sociology. As has been said, I have done a PhD in sociology, anthropology, and I've specialized in development studies, and I've taught it for many years at the college level. So in other words, human rights, human development is something close to my heart and is also part of my academic study. And so I have been very happy to note that India, since independence, has made great strides. In fact, at independence, we had three major goals to achieve. And of course, those were incremental goals. The first goal was to establish democracy. The second was to develop a vibrant economy. And the third was to reduce social disparities and divisions. These were the three major goals the country took up. I don't know if you were to reflect on the last 70 years, have we made some progress in these three areas? Well, I have been teaching that we have made substantive progress, and I can give you a whole lecture on that, but there's no time now. But if you were to look only at democracy, you would see that we have had free and fair elections, we have a vibrant free press, we have a very strong judiciary. Of course, there have been setbacks here and there, but by and large, establishing ourselves as a democracy among the democratic countries of the world, I think we have done very well. How many marks out of 10 would you give India for the democracy, establishing democracy? Definitely you have to give more than 5. I would give even 7. But of course, we have had problems with democracy right through. And that's the struggle of a democratic country, a democratic people. We have to constantly establish democracy. It is not a given. It's something we construct and constantly do so. But I think India has done well there. We have done very well in economic development. Remember that at the time when we got our independence, we were a very, very underdeveloped country because the British did not allow us to industrialize. And we had a type of agricultural system that led to famines and mass deaths due to the famine. We know that at the time of independence. And yet, over these last 70 years, we have developed ourselves economically, both as far as industrial production and high-end technology is concerned, and also as far as food production is concerned. From being a famine-stricken, import-oriented country as far as food is concerned, we began actually exporting food. So you can imagine that there has been substantive progress made there. And finally, as far as social disparities are concerned, the divisions, we have done a lot to build bridges. And at the grassroots level, most sociologists will tell you that the Indian people have built a lot of bridges, a lot of solidarities. And so we have made progress there too. However, economically, the disparities are still very wide. Now, that's the situation of the country, the situation of having left, the type of lack of freedom that we had earlier under the British and moving forward to a progressive nation. And this has been acknowledged across the world, that India is taking its place among the major countries of the world. My friends, I think we have to also realize that for a long time now, instead of making progress ahead, it looks like we have been sliding backward. On all these three fronts, democracy, the economy, and as far as the social disparities and building bridges between communities is concerned, we have had problems. And that is what I'd like to talk about today, because that's the context in which we are living now. I will only pick up a few points of what has happened. I'm sure you can add other things in from your knowledge, but let me just set the context for what we are doing here. We are talking about the type of issues that have been highlighted for India to go forward. That's what we are trying to do. So to set the background, let me talk about some of the unfortunate things that have happened in the last several years. I'm talking of violence, and violence is unfortunately the exact opposite of democracy, of building a good economy, and of course of building a social fabric that is cohesive, that is peace-loving. Violence has been a big problem. I'd like to start with the lynching that happened in Uttar Pradesh, Mohammed Akhlaque. Unfortunately, he was suspected of having beef, so meat of the holy animal, the cow, and instead of allowing the law to take its course, he was lynched, he was hammered to death. But I think it's not just that violence that we should be worried about. That's bad enough. But the fact is that he and his family had cases filed against him. He was the victim and he paid for it with his life through a lynch mob, not through the law. And yet he and his family had cases filed against them. I'd like to point out that this case went even further, because there was a police inspector whom I'm sure you have heard of, Subodh Kumar Singh, who was the person in charge of that case, and he was investigating the case, but he was removed before his results could be declared. He was removed, shifted somewhere else, and another police officer took up the case and made the results known. But about a year or two later, I think in 2018, the Mohammed Akhlaque case happened in 2015. In 2018, he was in another part of Uttar Pradesh, in Bulandshahr, and there was another lynching incident. And unfortunately, this upright Hindu police officer lost his life in a lynching case. Now, in other words, you can see that no one is safe. Even if you are an upright person doing your duty, and the law should have been supporting you fully, but we don't know what will happen next. And this is a test case, I would think, because it had to do with a person who was representing the law. And unfortunately, the law did not defend him, and he had to pay that price. So you see, therefore, this and many other instances have built up a culture of fear. People are afraid of what will happen next. We don't know what encounter we will have on the streets or even at our homes, in our institutions. Things do not seem to be safe. And that's unfortunate, because it means a very big setback, a sliding down the path of development that we had gone on. And I mentioned now this about the Muslim community who have been the victims of the lynch mobs by and large. But let's take other vulnerable sections of Indian society. I think starting with the Una incident, we all heard about the Una incident in which Dalits were whipped and beaten, and it was a very cruel act. But starting from there, it does look like Dalits are also on the back foot and are being attacked. For what reason really is very difficult to understand. I'd like to take the case of the Bhima Koregaon, because the Bhima Koregaon close by to us, you know, they were having a big celebration of the 500th anniversary of an event, a historical event. Thousands of Dalits had congregated in that area, and they were attacked by large groups of people. One person was killed, many were injured. And the Pune rural police, my friends, filed several FIRs, in fact a few hundred FIRs against the people who had attacked this group of Dalits. After a few days or weeks or maybe a few months, those cases were put on the back burner, and other cases came up, cases of I'm told, Naxalite activity and urban Naxals. We have 10 so-called urban Naxals behind bars in Pune. Why do I bring up this case? Because one of those urban Naxals is one of my group of people. He is Father Stan Swami, and he is an 82-year-old man. He has been for many years in Jharkhand. He has not visited Maharashtra for years. He has been fighting for the tribals in Jharkhand. And I presume the cases he was filing, etc., were not very convenient. It does look like he was implicated in the Bhima Koregaon case. I have also the family of another one of these lawyer activists who is at the moment in jail, Arun Ferreira. I know him well. I know his whole family well. He doesn't believe in violence. And yet, these are cases that are dragging on. They have been in jail for almost a year and a half. And this will possibly drag on. So you can see, therefore, that there is an atmosphere of fear. And take the last group, whom I've already referred to, the tribals in Jharkhand. The government there, some years ago, was trying to amend the laws so that the land could be owned by non-tribals. In other words, taking away even land rights from tribals, the original inhabitants of our land, Adivasis we call them. And you know, there was quite a lot of repercussions there, protests, movements, and that law was set aside. So I do think that a large section of Indian society is at the moment under a sense of fear, of insecurity, even a sense of being under attack. And it is in this context, I think, we have to read the new laws. I am not a specialist in law, so I'll leave it to Professor Mustafa and others to explain the intricacies of the CAA, the amendment to the Citizen Act. But I just want to mention this. The fact, I think we need to acknowledge that there must have been good intentions from the government to give a type of asylum and citizenship to people who have been oppressed, who have suffered persecution in neighboring countries and are already in India. They've come in illegally into India as refugees. So the intention, I don't think we should cast aspersions on. However, the fact that there is one community that is significant in India who have been left out, that is that's the problem, because that goes against a very basic character of the Constitution. And the Supreme Court has said, in a definitive judgment, You cannot change the character, the basic character of the Constitution. And therefore, secularism seems to come a cropper with this law, the Citizen Amendment Act. And that, therefore, is something that we should all be worried about, because it will mean a change in the whole lifestyle, in the whole character of our population, of our society. And if you link it with the citizen register, the National Register of Citizens, it has been proposed by no less than the present Home Minister of our country. And so we have to believe that. The fact that this is the intention of going in for a register of all citizens means that every one of us will have to produce documents. And if some of us, all the other communities besides the Muslim, if we are not able to produce documents, well, we will be given citizenship by naturalization, but not the Muslim community. And that is where we have a huge problem coming up. If you look at what has happened in Assam and the National Citizen Register process that went through, which has seen almost 2 lakh people left out, you will know that it has been a very traumatic experience. And indigenous people and others from that area have been left out because they couldn't produce those documents. And so if this is extended to the whole of the country, I think there will be a type of a churning up and a turmoil that we will not be able to handle. And so, my friends, this is what I think we should all be concerned about. The Catholic Church has been taking a stand. For example, the Archbishop of Mumbai had made a very simple statement saying that the government should consider this because it is causing a lot of anxiety and perhaps even roll it back. That was the suggestion, if it would harm the interests of our country, men and women. There are other Christian groups that have also made statements expressing concern and expressing that we have to relook at this whole citizenship issue. And so, my friends, all of us should, I'm sure the government will welcome this participation in a democratic process. All of us should take that stand, that we are concerned about what will happen to our country and the social fabric if we go into this type of exercise. When we have so many much more urgent issues to work at, the environment, for example, our Indian environment along with the rest of the world is in a precarious state. We also have our economy in a very serious crisis. We have employment problems. We have a problem in agriculture. And so we have so many issues which impinge on our security, on our well-being and welfare. Shouldn't we all put our hands and minds and hearts together working for a united, progressive nation? That's my call to all of you and to our nation. Let us pray and work for the betterment of every single Indian. Thank you.